So my name is DeLorenzo. I am 29 at the moment. I guess a few ways to answer this. I've been doing athletics basically my whole life since like second grade. Variations of basketball, soccer, football primarily. So in that space, I've always been an active person, but if we're talking specifically strength training, I never did it outside of when I had to in that time doing sports, I really got into it once I graduated college about 6 years ago or so. And for strongman specifically, I've been training it roughly like 3.5 or so years, but I never really, the first 1.5, 2 years were basically on my own, and I just was kind of freeballing it and had no idea what I was doing. And then in the last 2 years, I worked out here. I found Legends, found Vaughn, and just kind of followed his lead and have been really growing in that area the last 2 years. I find it a very fascinating sport because there's so many variations, there's so many different movements that you could do. So it's always interesting, there's always something to get better at, which sounds kind of corny, but it also keeps things very fresh. It's definitely changed my life for the better because, again, I've always done sports my whole life. So once I graduated high school and college and I moved away from an organized sports realm, I kind of had a void, for lack of a better word, that I didn't really know how to fill, and Strongman definitely filled that for me so that I have the structure. I have a set cadence to how I do things because I have practice, which is really just a training session. So it's definitely added a constructive structure to my life that has helped me kind of it's just helped me grow and just progress. So I've already gone to nationals. I would like to go again in both SS Core, Strongman Core, and USS, or United States Strongman. So I've already gone to nationals. I would like to go again now that I have a couple of more competitions and just years of training under my belt. I think I would do better. This upcoming April 2021, I have East Coast Most Powerful, which is a Platinum Plus, which I'm looking forward to doing. It's a pretty high level competition. It's the highest I've done outside of nationals, so I'm excited to see how I do there. In terms of long-term goals, I just am at the point where I want to do the best that I can do. I want to continue to just kind of push my, boundaries on where I think I can go. And I think that if I just keep with that, I believe that I have a lot of talent in this, but I also want to be realistic in that, this is a marathon, not a sprint. I'm in it for the long run. I'm not trying to be, redlining it, flash in the pan, and then I'm in and out in 2 years, I believe that if I just stay the course and just continue to just chip away at it, I would like to be a pro. I think that that's very feasible, but I also realize that there's a lot of work to be done before I get there. I wouldn't say rivals. No, not really rivals. There are people maybe that at competitions I'll look at and be like, I could beat that guy, or wow, that guy's gonna shit on me. But not anything specifically. It's more just, I just want to go just to prove to myself that I can do whatever the movement is. I'm doing comps to do the best that John DeLorenzo can do, and I believe that if I do the best that John DeLorenzo can do, I'll do well in the competition. For idols, I definitely, for sure, Zydrunas Savickas is probably the number one, far and away. He's the best strongman ever, in my opinion. Martins Licis is another good one. Thor, Brian Shaw, of course. Derek Poundstone as well. Those big name guys, I would say, are probably my idols because they were some of the people that I first, more so speaking of Savickas and Shaw and Poundstone. Oh, Pujanowski, of course. Those four were definitely the ones that were, because I used to watch Strongman back in mid to late 2000s, had no idea what it was, but I would just watch these guys and I was just blown away by what they were able to do. So maybe back then that subconsciously planted the seed, and so I always think about what they did and how they got to where they're at and try and replicate it sort of, because they were at the top of the mountain, so they kind of paved the way on how to go about it. For me, so I hired a coach and he basically tells me exactly from a macronutrient standpoint what to eat and when to eat it. So it's very dynamic in that sense because every meal is basically different. But in terms of what foods I eat, it's basically always lean pork, like pork chops are great and they're cheap. Lean ground beef, like 90% up. Chicken sorta, but honestly I don't really, it's mainly pork and beef, and there's just a ton of vegetables, rice and potatoes, and it's just different amounts of each depending on if I'm about to go to train, if I'm about to go to bed, things like that, and Greek yogurt as well. But it's, I don't want to say it's boring because like you make it interesting if you learn how to cook, which you kind of, I feel it's a requirement kind of, because if not you're just going to be eating boiled chicken all the time and that's trash. So you can kind of, like that's kind of like the foundation food, and then you just spice it up how you want. But yeah, that's basically what I eat. Yes. So there's a lot of times where, especially earlier on, because for me, kind of like my backstory, I guess, on how I fell into strongman. I know I mentioned I started for sports, and then I kind of had a void. I was overweight most of my life, at least for like high school through college. I was very overweight. And so for me, I kind of, once I got out of college, I was basically tired of being fat and being the fat funny kid. I just wanted, you know, I didn't want to be that anymore. So I kind of like tunnel visioned on like, I'm tired of being fat. I want to not be fat anymore. So there were a lot of times right out of college where I would sacrifice going out with friends, or, you know, go into like a social gathering, not necessarily missing out with my family, but like I would for sure deprive myself of things, because like in the back of my mind, I knew that wasn't going to help me get skinnier or move into the space that I wanted to go to. So in that end, yeah, I definitely have made sacrifices, but at the same time, like I learned from it and I've grown from it. So I would think of it more of a trade-off than a sacrifice. Just start. Have fun with it and learn proper technique. Don't worry about weight. Because the biggest thing for me that always held me back, I would say, was I always looked at, because again, like I would look at these big world's strongest man idols and I'm like, I gotta get this type of, not that I was like, I need to press 400 pounds over my head before I can do a comp. It was never like that, but it very much downplayed my ability until I reached certain markers that I didn't need to actually reach before I could compete. So for example, if I'm like, I can't do a comp until I deadlift 500 pounds, that is not the case. You can definitely join a competition and do the best that you can do, because at the end of the day, like it's fun, or it's supposed to be fun, that's the goal. So if you're trying to get into the sport, don't worry about numbers, just worry about, am I doing the movement right and am I having fun? And if both of those answers are yes, then I think you should absolutely start and keep going, because over time, if you continue this and you keep those two things in mind, you're always having fun and you're always doing things the right way from a technique standpoint, you're gonna have longevity and you're just gonna grow into your potential. So just start. I guess one word that describes me, I don't know, I guess I would need some feedback on everybody else, because it depends on, like I'm a big instigator, like I love stirring the pot because it's funny. Like I get a huge kick out of just like pushing buttons in like a playful way. Like I'm not trying to be a dick, but like that, in that way, I think it's, I would say instigator, but also like disciplined in certain realms, ambitious, curious, maybe curious. I would say curious for sure, because I'm always trying to learn stuff. I'm always reading something or watching something to learn. Like, I don't know, it'd be anything on YouTube from like space to nutrition to like, I don't know, how to draw something. Like I'm just always trying to learn something. So I would say curious for sure. I guess do what makes you happy. Pick the problems that you want to solve, right? Like everybody has problems. Everybody has challenges they're overcoming. If you could pick one thing, or if you could, I guess, frame your life, I would want to frame my life in a way, or where I'm trying to frame my life is I'm trying to solve problems that I enjoy solving, because then, I mean, I enjoy doing that, right? So don't stress small stuff and just enjoy the journey.